Good morning, students. So, we are going to start the part 2 of the previous video, that is from Trade to Territory. The company established its power. So, that is the continuation part of that one only. So, topic is Tipu Sultan, the Tiger of Mysore. Mysore has grown in strength under the leadership of powerful rulers like Hyder Ali and his famous son Tipu Sultan. So, Hyder Ali ruled from 1761 to 1782, whereas his son Tipu Sultan he ruled from 1782 to 1799. Mysore controlled the profitable trade of Malabar coast, where the company purchased pepper and cardamom. So, as you know, spices, India is rich in spices. So, where cardamom and pepper were, like they used to purchase from the Malabar coast. So, that coast was under Mysore. So, in 1785, Tipu Sultan stopped the export of sandalwood, pepper, and cardamom through the ports of his kingdom, and this allowed local merchants from trading with the company. He also established a close relationship with the French in India and modernized his army with their help. So, at that time in 1785, seeing the Britishers' tactics, Tipu Sultan has stopped the export of sandalwood, pepper, and cardamom through the ports of his kingdom, and local merchants and traders were not allowed to trade it from his area. And instead of Britishers, he made close relationship with French people. As you know, French was also coming, Dutch was also coming, Portuguese was also there. So he had made close relationships with French in India and modernized his army with their help. The were furious. They saw Hyder and Tipu as ambitious, arrogant, and dangerous rulers who had to be controlled and crushed. Four wars were fought with Mysore. The first one, 1767 to 69, 1780 to 84, 1790 to 92, and 1799. So, as Britishers saw the alliance of Tipu Sultan and Hyder Ali with the French, and they also stopped the export of sandalwood, cardamom, cinnamon, and all that. So this made Britishers very furious. They thought that these people are very dangerous. They are daring in front of us. So they tried to control them. So they fought many wars. That is Mysore War 1, 2, 3, and all. So these were the dates given of all the four wars. These are very important, students. Only in the last, the Battle of Seringamapatnam, did the company ultimately win a victory. So at the last battle, the Battle of Seringamapatnam, known as, at that time, company, the Britishers won it and they were celebrating their victory. Tipu Sultan was killed defending his capital, Seringamapatnam. So, as we know, as we came to know that Seringamapatnam was the capital of the Tipu Sultan kingdom. Mysore was placed under the former ruling dynasty of Vodayars and subsidiary alliance was imposed on the state. War with the Marathas. The Marathas were subdued in a series of war. In the first war that ended in 1782 with the Treaty of Salbai, there is no clear victory. So, Marathas were ignoring the wars. The first war ended in 1782. The Treaty of Salbai was formed in 1782. The Second Anglo Maratha War was fought on different fronts, resulting in the British gaining Odisha and the territories north of Yamuna River, including Agra and Delhi. So, the Second Anglo Maratha War was held in 1803 to 05, in which Britishers got the territories of Odisha and including Agra and Delhi. Finally, the Third Anglo Maratha War, 1817 to 1819, crushed the Maratha power and they were able to control them. The Peshwa was removed and sent away to Bithur near Kanpur with a pension. So, the person who was ruling the Maratha kingdom, he was just given a mere pension and he was thrown out of his throne. The company now had complete control over the territories of south of Vindhyas. So as they earlier controlled Mysore, then they controlled Maratha kingdom. So they were like controlling the whole India. So there is PA instructions for you students. So please pause the video and answer these questions. And the answers of these questions will be given in the description box below, which you can visit at the end of the video. Choose the correct option regarding Tipu's toy tiger. Company seized it from Tipu Sultan during the Third War with Mysore. It is now kept in Victoria and Albert Museum in London. It is non-mechanical toy. Tipu has control over Malabar coast, Vindhya coast, Bengal coast, or none of the above. Mark the correct options. During which war Britishers gained Odisha, northern territories of Yamuna River including Agra and Delhi? Second Anglo-Maratha War, Third Anglo-Maratha War, Second Anglo-Mysore War, Third Anglo-Mysore War. The Battle of Sengapatnam was fought between British and Maratha. True or false? So there is a new topic, the doctrine of lapse. Lord Dalhousie gave this doctrine of lapse. Lord Dalhousie, who was the Governor General from 1848 to 1856, has devised a policy that came to be known as doctrine of lapse. So he was the Governor General from 1848. Do learn these facts; these are very important, students. To 1856, has devised a policy known as doctrine of lapse. The doctrine declared that if any Indian ruler died without a male heir, his kingdom would be lapsed, that is, become a part of company's territory. So what does doctrine of lapse means here? If the kingdom's ruler has died, so if he does not have any son after him, any male heir after him, so that territory of that kingdom will be completely going to company. Similarly, this way, Satara in 1848, they got territory under doctrine of lapse. These were the places: Sambalpur in 1850, Udaipur in 1852, Nagpur in 1853, and Jhansi 1854. 56, the company also took over Awadh. They claimed to paramountcy. Under Lord Hastings, he was the Governor General of India from 1813 to 1823. A new policy of paramountcy was initiated. Now the company claimed that its authority was paramount and supreme, hence its power was greater than that of Indian states. In order to protect its interests, it was justified in annexing or threatening to annex any Indian kingdom. This view continued to guide British policies as well. So this new policy stated that the Britishers, the company's authority is the supreme, and all the Indian states' authorities are nothing in front of them, and they are the supreme. So this was all already in favor of Britishers. It was nothing for the Indians. This process, however, did not go unchallenged. For example, when the Britishers tried to annex the small state of Kitnur in Karnataka today, Rani Channamma took arms and led an anti-British resistance movement. She was arrested in 1824 and died in prison in 1829. So it was like during these policies made by Britishers, people were trying to fight with them, revolt with them, we would say. So similarly, that can they have given an example of a woman of Kittur, like Rani Channamma. She led an anti-British resistance movement. She was arrested in 1824 and she died in 1829. In the late 1830s, the East India Company became worried about Russia. It imagined that Russia might expand across Asia and enter India from northwest. Driven by his fear, British now wanted to secure his control over northwest. So as we know earlier, they had control over South, Mysore, Maratha kingdom, and everything. So now they were worried that Russia can enter from the northwest as well. It was near the coast. So they tried to stop them, and they wanted to control the northwest also. Now they fought a prolonged war with Afghanistan between 1838 and 1842 and established an intact complete rule there. Sindh was taken over in 1843. So they were now, as near Pakistan, there was Afghanistan. At that time, there was no Pakistan, we would say. It was whole Indian territory only. So Afghanistan was the other country. So they made alliances. They tried to overtook them, and Sindh was also taken control within that in 1843. Next in line was Punjab, but the presence of Maharaja Ranjit Singh held back the company. After his death in 1839, two prolonged war was fought with the Sixth Kingdom. Ultimately, 1849, Punjab was also next. At that time, when there was rule of Ranjit Singh, the company was not able to control it. But when he died in 1839, they fought two major wars with British Sikh people, and they were able to annex Punjab in 1849. So choose the options regarding the doctrine of lapse. It is devised by Warren Hastings. If an Indian ruler died without a male heir, his kingdom would lapse and he would be given another kingdom. So first is true but second is false. Second is true but first is false. Both are true and both are false. Under Lord Hastings, Governor General, who was from 1813 to 1823, a new policy of paramountcy was initiated. True or false? Company was able to annex Punjab during the presence of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. True and false. Rani Channamma took his arms against policy of paramountcy, doctrine of lapse, or subsidiary alliance. So these were the all three policies initiated by Britishers. So which of them Rani Channamma took arms against? The company's army. The Mughal army was mainly composed of cavalry, Sarvas, trained soldiers on horseback, and infantry, that is, pedal foot soldiers. They were given training in archery and the use of sword. The cavalry dominated the army, and the Mughal state did not feel the need to have a large professionally trained infantry. The rural areas have a large number of armed peasants, and the local zamindars often supplied the Mughals with paid soldiers. 18th century, when a Mughal successor started recruiting peasants into their armies and training them as professional soldiers. So there were many soldiers in the army at that time, in infantry, in cavalry. So Zamindar often supplied army persons to the company. So they were having a strong army. The East India Company adopted the same method when it began recruitment for its own army, which came to be known as Sepoy Army. So the army of the East India Company was known as Sepoy Army. As warfare technology changed from the 1820s, the cavalry requirements of the British army declined. This is because British Empire was fighting with Burma, Afghanistan and Egypt, where soldiers were armed with muskets and matchlocks. The soldiers of the company army had to keep pace with changing military requirements, and infantry regiments now became more important. So cavalry was the one moved on horses or like that. So as they were going to fight for Afghanistan, Burma and Egypt, that people used to wear that headlocks, everything, muskets, matchlocks. So for that cavalry was needed, not needed much. So they needed more infantry. Like that, as per the wars, the requirements changed. In the early 19th century, British began to develop a uniform military culture. Soldiers were increasingly subjected to European style training, drilling, and discipline that regulated their life far more than before. Often, these created problems since caste and community feelings were ignored in building a force of professional soldiers. So, everybody was given the European style training, drill, discipline, and this created problems since caste and community feelings were ignored completely of the people. So there is last PA instructions for you. Sepoy is army is of Mughals company Khilji. Choose the incorrect option regarding Mughals' army. Mainly composed of cavalry and infantry, that is pedal soldiers, giving training in archery, tir-andazi, and the use of sword. The local Zamindar often supplied the Mughals with pedal soldiers, and infantry dominated the army and the Mughal. During the 18th century, infantry regiment became more important. True or false? British began to develop a uniform military culture in 17th century, 18th century, 19th century, and 16th century. Setting up a new administration. British territories were broadly divided into administrative units called presidencies. These were three presidencies, mainly Bengal, Madras, and Bombay. Each was ruled by a governor. So now Britishers did a different new thing. They divided the administrative units called presidencies. There were three presidencies: Bengal, Madras, and Bombay. So obviously they was more developed in other regions. They were ruled by, each of them was ruled by a governor. The supreme head of the administration was the Governor General Warren Hastings. The first Governor General introduced several administrative reforms, notably in the sphere of justice. So this was under the administration of Warren Hastings. From 1772, a new system of justice was established. Each district was to have two courts, a criminal court and a civil court. So, under Warren Hastings, there were many administrative reforms that took place. So, from 1772, there were two courts that were being made. One was Faujdari Adalat and one was Diwani Adalat, the criminal court and the civil court. Maulvis and Hindu Pandits interpreted Indian law for the European district collectors who presided over civil courts. The criminal courts were still under Qazi and Mufti. So the criminal courts were under Qazi and Mufti, and Maulvis and Hindu Pandits, they took control of the civil court. The major problem was that Brahman Pandits gave different interpretation of local laws based on different schools of Dharma Shastra. So as we know, Brahmins, they move according to their texts. So they used to interpret the laws according to Dharma Shastras. To bring about uniformity, in 1775, 11 Pandits were asked to compile a digest of Hindu law. N.B. Haldane had translated this digest into English. By 1778, a code of Muslim laws was also compiled for the benefit of European judges. Under the Regulating Act of 1773, a new Supreme Court was established, while a Court of Appeal, the Sardar Nizamat Adalat, was also set up at Calcutta. So under the Regulating Act of 1773, Supreme Court was established, which was known as Sardar Nizamat Adalat. It was also set up in Calcutta. The principal figure in an Indian district was the collector. As the title suggests, the main job of the collector was to collect revenues and taxes and maintain law and order in the district with the help of judges, police officers, darogas. His office, the collectorate, became the new center of power and patronage that steadily replaced previous holders of authority. So here we see that collector is having a very powerful state. At that time, he used to collect revenues, taxes, look at the regulation and order, and all the police, the rogas were under him. He was known as the collectorate. So major authority was given to him. So P instructions. Choose the best option. British territories were broadly divided into administrative units called presidencies. Warren Hastings was the Governor General. Bengal, Madras were ruled by the governors. First is true, but second, third are false. Second and first are true, but third is false. The third is true, but first and second are false. All are true and all are false. So that's all for the class today. Thank you.